Hi Reddit, I'm Jack, 38. I'm a contractor, remodeling, fixing things, anything that pays the bills. My wife, Carla, is 34 and a fitness instructor at a downtown studio. She's all about appearances, always in leggings or tight tops that leave nothing to the imagination. It wasn't a problem at first. Hell, I used to be proud of it. We've been married 7 years. No kids. Carla wasn't interested. She'd always say, "We've got time," or, "I want to focus on myself right now." After a while, I stopped asking. A few months ago, things started to feel different. Carla was working late more often, saying she had private sessions or needed to clean up at the studio. She'd come home freshly showered, throw her gym bag straight into the wash, and act like everything was fine. One night, I pulled her laundry out of the machine to throw in a load of my work clothes. That's when I saw her leggings, sticky streaks smeared across the back. "What's this?" I asked, holding them up when she walked into the room. She barely glanced at them. "Protein shake. I spilled it during a session." "Protein shake?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah," she said, her tone flat. "One of the clients knocked it over and I leaned into it. Don't make it a thing." Her answer was too quick, too dismissive. But I let it slide. For the moment, the phone was the next issue. Carla was always on it, texting at random hours, smiling at messages and turning the screen away if I got too close. One night, while we were in bed, I asked her about it. "Who keeps texting you this late?" I said. "Clients," she replied without looking up. "Do clients need to talk to you at 10 at night?" She sighed, tossing the phone onto the nightstand. "It's nothing, Jack. Just scheduling stuff. Don't make it weird." Her tone shut me down, but it only made me more suspicious. A week later, Carla left her phone charging in the kitchen while she showered. When it buzzed, I hesitated for a second, then picked it up. The name on the screen was Chris. "Chris, last night was insane. You taste amazing." I scrolled through the chat. There were more messages, flirty compliments, plans to meet up, and even a picture she'd sent. It was Carla, leaning over in her sports bra and leggings, captioned, "Can't wait to see you again." When she came out of the bathroom, I was sitting at the table with her phone in my hand. "Who the hell is Chris?" I asked, holding up the phone. Her smile vanished, and she froze for half a second before her expression hardened. "Why are you going through my phone? Why are you sending this guy pictures?" I shot back. "That's private," she said, stepping forward to grab the phone. I pulled it back. "Private? You're my wife, and you're screwing around with some guy named Chris." She crossed her arms, glaring at me. "Maybe if you gave me attention, I wouldn't need to look elsewhere." "Are you seriously blaming me for this?" I said, my voice rising. "You're always working or tired, Jack. I've had to do everything myself. Chris actually cares." I stood, gripping the phone tightly. "You're unbelievable," I said. "You've been lying to me this whole time, and you think I'm the problem? Maybe you should leave," she said, snatching the phone from my hand. I didn't say anything else. I grabbed my keys and walked out. But I wasn't finished. Carla and Chris thought they could humiliate me. They had no idea what was coming. After leaving the house, I sat in my truck down the street. I didn't even turn on the engine. I needed to think. Carla had crossed every line. Her words were clear. She didn't care about our marriage, and now she was flaunting it. I wasn't going to sit back and take it. She wanted to act like this was a game? Fine, I'd play. The next morning, I went back to the house early. Carla was already up, standing in the kitchen in her leggings and a cropped tank top, scrolling through her phone. She didn't even look up when I walked in. "Morning," she said casually, like nothing had happened. I didn't respond. "Still mad?" she asked, glancing over her shoulder with a smirk. "Do you even care?" I said. "Not really," she said, shrugging. "I don't have time to babysit your feelings, Jack." I stepped closer. "You're unbelievable." "No, Jack, you're predictable," she shot back, setting her phone on the counter. "You're boring, you're always working. And I don't even know the last time you tried to make me feel special." "Special?" I said. "You mean like screwing Chris behind my back?" She picked up her phone again, smirking. "Well, at least he knows how to have fun." I took a step closer. You think this is fun? Ruining everything we built. She tilted her head. What did we build, Jack? A house? A marriage where you're barely here? I don't even feel like I'm married anymore. You're disgusting, I said. She laughed softly, picking up her gym bag. Whatever, Jack. If you're done whining, I've got a session to get to. Don't wait up. She walked out the door without another word. An hour later, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Carla. Carla, check out this face mask my clients made for me. Attached was a photo of her on her knees, topless, her face smeared with sticky white streaks. She was smiling at the camera, her caption dripping with mockery. I stared at the photo, anger building as I realized what she was doing. She wasn't just flaunting her affair. She was throwing it in my face. I called her. She picked up after a few rings, her voice casual. What's up? What the hell is this? I said. It's just a joke, she said, laughing softly. A joke? You think this is funny? She didn't miss a beat. Maybe if you weren't so uptight, you'd get it. You're disgusting, I said. Thanks for the feedback, Jack, she said before hanging up. I put the phone down. Carla thought she could keep pushing me, but she had no idea what I was capable of. She wanted a game? She'd get one, and I'd make sure I finished it. Carla left the house that evening wearing her tight red leggings and matching top. I recognized it from the texts I'd seen on her phone. Chris's favorite. She didn't bother saying goodbye. She never did anymore. As soon as she pulled out of the driveway, I got into my truck and followed her. She headed straight to the gym like she always did. I parked across the street and waited, watching the entrance. An hour later, Chris showed up in his car. He parked near the entrance and leaned against the hood, texting on his phone. It didn't take long before Carla came out, laughing and flipping her hair like she was in some kind of romantic movie. She kissed him, right there in the open, before they got into his car and drove off. I followed, keeping a safe distance. They ended up at a cheap motel just off the main road. I parked nearby, close enough to see but not be seen. They were inside for over an hour. I sat in my truck, gripping the wheel, waiting. When they finally came out, Carla was holding her gym bag, her hair messy, and Chris had that cocky grin plastered on his face. I pulled the truck closer, easing into the motel lot. Chris noticed me first, nudging Carla to look in my direction. Her smile dropped the moment she saw my truck. Jack, she said, her voice loud enough to hear. Chris took a step forward, raising his hands. Hey man, calm down. I didn't give him a chance to finish. I hit the gas and aimed straight for his car, ramming into the driver's side door. The sound of metal crunching was loud enough to turn every head in the lot. Carla screamed, grabbing Chris's arm. What the hell are you doing? She shouted at me. Chris backed away, trying to shield Carla as I got out of the truck. You think you can mess with me? I said, pointing at them. You think I'm just going to sit back and let you disrespect me? Jack, stop, Carla yelled, stepping in front of Chris. I took a step closer. You don't get to tell me what to do, Carla. Not anymore. Chris moved to block her again. You're crazy, man, he said, his voice shaking. Crazy, I said, looking at him. You have no idea. I turned back to my truck and pulled open the door. Carla was screaming at me to stop, but I wasn't listening. I reversed, then slammed into his car again, smashing the front bumper this time. Chris grabbed Carla and dragged her back toward the motel entrance, yelling for someone to call the cops. I didn't care. I'd made my point. As I pulled out of the lot, I rolled down the window. Next time you think about screwing another man's wife, remember this, I said, pointing at Chris. And Carla? Don't come home. I didn't wait for a response. I drove off, leaving them standing there in the wreckage of their night. When Carla came through the door later that night, she was a mess. Her makeup was smudged, her red leggings were dirty, and her face was pale. She slammed the door behind her, dropping her gym bag onto the floor. What the hell is wrong with you? She shouted, her voice shaking. I was sitting in the living room, calm, waiting for her. What are you talking about? I asked, keeping my tone steady. Don't play dumb, Jack, she snapped, pointing a finger at me. You rammed Chris's car. You could have killed someone. It was just an accident, I said, leaning back on the couch. These things happen. An accident? She said, her voice rising. You followed us. You're insane. I stood up slowly, taking a step toward her. You're right, Carla. I followed you. You know why? Because I'm tired of the lies, the disrespect, and the games. Her hands were shaking as she crossed her arms. You've lost it. I'm calling the cops. I'm filing a report. You're not getting away with this. I smirked. Go ahead. Call them. But before you do, let me show you something. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder I'd put together. Screenshots of her texts with Chris. Photos she'd sent him. Videos of her in that red set, giggling and pulling her top down. I turned the screen toward her, letting her see everything. Her face went even paler. What is this? She stammered. This is what your family's going to see if you try to play games with me, I said. Your parents, your siblings, your friends. Hell, I'll send it to the studio you love so much. Let's see how they feel about hiring someone like you. You wouldn't, she whispered, but her voice was weak. Try me, I said, staring her down. She stood there, frozen, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't figure out what to say. You think you can cheat on me? Rub it in my face, and then threaten me? I continued. You've got this all backward, Carla. You don't get to make the rules anymore. I do. She finally found her voice. Chris will what? I interrupted. You think he cares about you? You're just a fling to him. You're nothing, Carla. Nothing. Tears started welling up in her eyes, but I didn't feel an ounce of sympathy. So here's how this is going to go, I said, stepping closer. You keep your mouth shut about tonight. You stop seeing him. And you don't even think about trying to screw me over. Because if you do, this, I held up my phone, is going to ruin you. She didn't respond. She just stood there, shaking, before finally turning and walking toward the bedroom. As she disappeared down the hallway, I sat back down on the couch, feeling the weight of the moment. Carla thought she could control everything, but now the tables had turned. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was back in charge. Chris thought he could disrespect me and keep jogging through life like nothing had happened. His arrogance was all over the texts I found on Carla's phone. He even joked about me, like I was a fool he'd outsmarted. This morning, I was going to show him exactly who he was dealing with. I drove to the spot where his jogging trail crossed the road. The texts had been clear, he was predictable. Same path, same time. He wanted to be noticed, and today I was giving him the attention he deserved. I parked the truck and waited. A few joggers passed, but none of them were him. Then I saw him, his neon gear standing out, moving at a steady pace. He was on the trail, crossing into the road without looking, like he thought he owned it. I hit the gas and aimed the truck at him. The impact wasn't subtle. It sent him off the trail, straight onto the road where cars were meant to drive. I stopped the truck and climbed out, walking to where he lay. Chris was sprawled on the asphalt, groaning as he tried to lift himself but failed. Look at you now, I said, standing over him. His head turned slightly, and he squinted up at me. You're out of your damn mind, he mumbled, his voice shaky. I crouched down, grabbing his shirt with one hand to make sure he didn't squirm away. Shut up and listen, I said. The police will be here soon, and you're going to tell them this was your fault. You weren't looking and you ran into the road. Got it? Chris winced, his face tightening as he tried to process what I was saying. You can't just... I cut him off. I can, and I just did. If you don't tell them exactly what I said, this ends differently. And if you think Carla's safe, you're wrong. She's next on my list. He froze, staring at me like he was trying to figure out if I was serious. Say it, I demanded, shaking him slightly. Okay. Fine, he blurted out, his words coming fast. I'll say it. I'll tell them it was my fault. I let go of his shirt, standing up and looking down at him. Good. Now stay down until someone comes, and don't even think about crossing me again. Chris didn't move. He just stayed there, flat on the road, cars slowing in the distance as drivers tried to figure out what was happening. I walked back to my truck, started the engine, and drove off. In the rearview mirror, I could see him lying there, still not moving. He thought he could ruin my life and walk away. Now he knew better. I came into the house, and Carla was at the counter scrolling through her phone. She didn't even look up at first, but then her eyes shot to my hands. "Why do you have blood on you?" she asked, her voice sharp, almost panicked. I glanced down. It wasn't much, just a streak on my knuckles. "Chris," I said casually, walking past her toward the sink. "What does that mean?" "Chris," she demanded, putting her phone down and following me. "It means he got what he deserved," I said, wiping my hands on a towel. Her face twisted into a mix of anger and fear. "What did you do?" I turned to face her. "He ran into some trouble while he was out jogging. I made sure he understood some things." Her voice rose. "You're insane. Do you know how much trouble you're in? If he goes to the cops." "He won't," I cut her off. "He's not stupid." I explained it to him. "He'll tell them he wasn't paying attention and ran into the road." "And why the hell would he do that?" she asked, stepping closer. I stared at her. "Because he knows I'll finish what I started if he doesn't. And if you want to keep playing these games, I can make things just as hard for you." Her mouth tightened, and she looked at me like she was trying to figure out if I was bluffing. "I've got all the proof I need, Carla," I continued. "I can show your family, your friends, everyone what you've been up to with Chris. Do you want that? Because I'll burn this whole thing down if you push me." "You're disgusting," she spat. "No," I said, my voice calm. "I'm tired of being lied to and treated like a fool." She stood there, staring at me, her breathing quick. "You think you're in control, don't you?" I stepped past her, heading to the living room. "Go ahead, Carla. Try me." She didn't follow, and I could feel her eyes on me as I grabbed the remote and flipped on the TV. Whatever she was thinking, it didn't matter. Chris was handled for now, and Carla needed to realize her options were running out. Carla woke up as I sat down on the bed. She noticed the packed bag sitting between us. "What's this?" I asked. She glanced at the bag, then back at me. "It's not what you think," she said quickly. "I was going to stay at my sister's for a while. Just some space to figure things out." "Space," I repeated. "Is that what you call running away?" Her voice trembled. "I wasn't running." "Sure. And you weren't planning to see Chris either, right?" I shot back. Her hands clutched at the sheets. "Jason, I'm scared. You've been so angry, and everything's spiraling out of control. You're scared of me now?" I leaned forward. "You weren't scared when you brought him into our bed." Tears welled in her eyes. "I know I messed up, but you're taking this too far. Sending those messages. What are you trying to prove?" "I'm proving that actions have consequences," I said firmly. She shifted uncomfortably. "This isn't justice. It's cruelty. What's next, Jason? What do you even want?" I stood up, towering over her. "I want you to feel what I felt. Betrayed, humiliated, powerless." Her voice broke. "I'm sorry, Jason. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right." I laughed bitterly. "It's a little late for that. Please." She reached out, grabbing my arm. "We can fix this. I'll cut ties with him. We can start over." I yanked my arm away. "You don't get to decide that. You lost that right when you brought him into our lives." Her head dropped as the weight of her choices settled in. I grabbed the bag and threw it across the room. "You're not going anywhere, Jason." I walked to the door, locking it behind me. "Stay here. Maybe you'll come up with a better excuse while I'm gone." Carla was still asleep in the locked room when I finished sending the emails. Each one carried the evidence of her betrayal, photos, texts, and a detailed account of everything she had done. Her sister, her mother, and a few friends who used to idolize our marriage now had the truth staring them in the face. The responses came almost immediately. "Sister, what the hell is this? Is this real? I can't believe her." Her mother's message hit harder. "Mom, I raised her better than this. I'm so sorry, but I don't know what to say. She's destroyed her family." Carla's sister sent another. "Sister, she doesn't deserve to be around the kids after this. Do what you have to do, but don't let her near them. She's disgusting." A wave of satisfaction washed over me. For once, People were seeing Carla for who she really was, not the perfect wife and mother she pretended to be. From the bedroom, I heard the sound of stirring, then her voice. "Hey, what's going on?" She sounded groggy at first but quickly realized something was wrong when the door wouldn't open. "Why is this locked? Let me out." I didn't answer, watching more notifications roll in. I wanted her to feel the isolation, the same way I had when I discovered what she was doing. "Open the door. What did you do?" Her voice was more frantic now, her fists pounding the wood. I stayed calm, scrolling through the replies from her so-called support system. Finally, I spoke, my voice steady. "Sent the truth to everyone. Your mom, your sister, a few friends. Should I keep going? Are you out of your mind? What did you send them?" "Oh, you'll find out soon enough. Once they call you." "You're sick," she yelled. "Sick? No, just done. Now they know who you are." "Exactly who you are." Her tone changed, desperation seeping in. "Please, we can work this out. I messed up. Okay? But we can fix this. I'll do whatever you want." I let out a sharp laugh. The time to fix things ended the second you decided Chris was worth risking everything for. "Chris, he's in the hospital because of you," she screamed. "And you're still playing the victim?" "Chris," I replied, my voice dripping with mockery. "Chris made his own choices. And if you think anyone's going to side with him after what I sent, you're as clueless as he is." Her sobs grew louder. "You're ruining my life." "Your life? What about mine? You threw it away without a second thought, and now you're mad it's not going your way." She screamed again, banging harder on the door. "Let me out, you bastard. You can't do this." I stayed quiet, letting her rant and sob. My phone buzzed again. Her sister had sent another message. "Sister, keep her away from the kids. She's selfish and she's made her choices. You don't owe her anything." I leaned back in my chair, ignoring Carla's cries and the thudding against the door. She could scream all she wanted. I had already won. The pieces of her fake, perfect life were crumbling, and there wasn't a thing she could do to stop it. The house was silent, except for the occasional muffled thud from the bedroom door. Carla had pounded and screamed for hours, demanding to be let out. Her voice had grown hoarse, the rage turning to pitiful sobs. I let her stew. She needed to sit with the wreckage she'd created. The phone buzzed again. This time it was her sister. "Sister, unbelievable. She thinks anyone would side with her after this? She's destroyed every bit of respect she had. Stay strong." Her mother's earlier message wasn't any softer. "Mom, she's humiliated herself. Don't let her manipulate you into letting her stay." I put the phone down and glanced at the door. It was time to end this once and for all. "Carla," I called out, standing outside the door. There was silence for a moment, then the sound of her shuffling closer. "What?" she croaked, her voice raw. "I'm unlocking the door. But this isn't a negotiation." I turned the key, opening the door to find her sitting on the edge of the bed. Her eyes were red, makeup smeared, hair tangled. She looked at me, defeated but defiant. "I didn't tell them lies, Carla," I said. "I didn't have to. Your photos, your texts, they did all the talking." She buried her face in her hands. "Please don't do this. I'll fix it. I'll do whatever it takes." I shook my head. "It's too late. You've been doing whatever it takes for months. Just not for us." Her shoulders shook as another wave of sobs hit her. "Where am I supposed to go?" "To someone who cares. But that's not my problem anymore." She stood, wobbling a bit as she faced me. "You're just going to throw me out?" I crossed my arms, keeping my voice steady. "You packed a bag before. You already knew this was coming." Carla flinched. "I wasn't leaving you. I was just scared. I thought if Chris came back to make a scene." "Save it," I snapped. "Chris isn't your safety net anymore. He's in the hospital, probably wondering how he ended up like this. You destroyed your options. Now you deal with it." She hesitated, tears streaking down her face. "You're heartless." "Maybe," I said, stepping aside and motioning toward the hallway. "Or maybe I finally grew a spine." Her footsteps were heavy as she dragged herself to the door. carrying the bag she'd packed earlier. She stopped on the porch, turning to look at me one last time. "I hate you," she whispered. "Get in line," I replied, shutting the door before she could say anything else. As the lock clicked, a strange calm settled over me. It wasn't joy or relief. It was clarity. Carla was gone, and so was the chaos she brought into my life. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. Months passed, and life moved on as it always does. For Carla, things fell apart quickly. The photos and messages I shared rippled through her personal and professional life. Her sister, who had once tried to defend her, eventually cut ties, disgusted by the repeated lies and manipulation. Carla moved out of town shortly after, taking refuge with a distant cousin. Word was, she was working odd jobs, scraping by, and staying as far from the spotlight as possible. Chris recovered from his injuries, but his career never bounced back. His reputation had taken a hit from his involvement with Carla, and his personal life followed suit. Rumors swirled that his fiancée left him, unable to stomach the shame. I heard he moved to another city, too, but I didn't care to follow up. His existence meant nothing to me now. As for me, things didn't immediately snap into place. The divorce process was messy, as Carla fought for scraps of a life she destroyed. But in the end, the courts sided with me. The house, the finances, I kept everything. The most important change wasn't material. It was the peace. Without the constant tension, the lies, the weight of mistrust, my days became lighter. I reconnected with old friends, picked up hobbies I'd abandoned, and began seeing the world with fresh eyes. Therapy helped me untangle the mess Carla had left in my mind, and I started to trust people again. Cautiously. Carla sent a few texts here and there. Apologies, please, and later, anger when I didn't respond. I deleted each one. She became a ghost in my life, a reminder of what happens when you let betrayal linger too long. The scars she left were real, but so was my recovery. One day, I met someone new. Not at a bar, not through a friend, just an accidental crossing of paths. She was different from Carla in every way. Honest, kind, and steady. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to believe in a future worth building. Carla and Chris became footnotes in my story, lessons rather than chapters. And while the pain they caused shaped me, it didn't define me. My life wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about starting over, and this time on my own terms. That's the ending I chose for myself. A better one.